never into Squid Game, Hunger Games, or any battle royale game really. But this one was about food. Why did this show resonate with me, and how can I possibly integrate what I learned and watched from the show into my own content? I have a tendency to try to understand and potentially incorporate in my own content, shows, or any sort of video that I find myself drawn into. It's a habit I picked up from the design world and learning that inspiration can come in many forms. Content brain can be hard to shut down sometimes, so it's better to just make the best out of it. Wholesome food competitions. This should just be a category on its own. I love the Great British Bake Off and the spin-offs. Fun fact, apparently Pillsbury, the oh boy company, trademarked the word bake off and it had to be renamed for the Canadian and US versions of the show. The only time I watched any of the Gordon Ramsay shows is when I'm waiting at the dentist and they want everyone drooling before going into the cleaning rooms. While they're exciting to watch, I've always found them a little bit difficult to stay on top of the contestants, especially with all the ad breaks and weekly release schedules. I'll divide this breakdown video into 3 segments: the format, the cast, and the editing, and see how each part can tie back into making my own videos and for future productions. There are 2 seasons released for Culinary Class Wars, but the initial premise remained the same for both seasons. There are 20 white-coated chefs all introduced with their names, and 80 black-coated chefs with nicknames that they came up with themselves. This was already a good strategy to begin with because if you're not into the Korean culinary world like I was, you may not know any of the chefs' names. Giving the quote-unquote underdogs of the show nicknames can make it easy for viewers to remember them by, even if their screen time is quite short. Bim, bim, bim. I think it's pretty relevant to content creators too. Having a tagline helps establish what kind of content you would make. So like for me, simply saying that I am a cat rogue VTuber doesn't really give you much info about me, unless I am really leaning into the rogue concept. Cat roguelike VTuber might be better if I played games like Hades or other games of that genre. Honestly speaking, my current tagline could still use some work. Think otaku cat is a good start, but honestly, I don't think it really covers exactly who I am as a content creator. In the show, names like Witch with a Walk, Rebellious Genius, Brewmaster Yoon. I'm sure there's a writer that helped with the nicknames, but they all craft a memorable story around them and the food that they made. And then each round had different tasks. One thing I find about elimination shows is that each round tends to get more and more intense than the previous one. You gotta up the stakes each time, and for both seasons, it was done pretty well. I do have some thoughts about the last rounds, but overall it was pretty effective in keeping my attention on the show. Even for the second season, while some of the rounds were the same theme as the first, they did improve on the rules, and it's probably because of the bigger budget too. Some of the set pieces were really intense, like the Wheel of Ingredients. What is that? Holy! The main stage area was also arranged so that there were 2 sides of elevated waiting areas where chefs who weren't currently competing in the round could observe what the other contestants were doing. This kind of behaves like a reactionary commentary style for viewers to relate to, but also interesting that at times it felt like additional pressure to the contestants. And then other times it was a place to hear encouragements from. And speaking of the people, the choice of cast was interesting, and starting from the 2 judges. Before visiting Seoul for the first time, I once went to a place called Pic's Noodle in the States. I thought the jjajangmyeon was really good at the time and a lot better than the ones that you would go to the supermarket to buy. I didn't realize how much of a businessman he was until I stepped into Seoul. And I thought, Pic is a really common last name, but why do all these shops, like the coffee shop over there, have such similar faces on them? I also wanted to try jjajangmyeon in Korea so that I could see how different it was from the Western take on it. Turns out I went to the same shop that I had in the States, but in Korea it's just called a different name, HK Banjum 0410. Pic is pretty controversial, but you really can't deny that he is well known for his food business ventures. He's got that eye for seeing what the general masses would like to eat. And then you have An Sung-jae, who is a celebrity chef that has restaurants that reached 3 Michelin stars. He's looked up to by many aspiring chefs and colleagues. You can see that many of the fine dining competitors in the show are interested in getting his critique, and he provides a good counterpart to Pic's judging. Kind of like a good cop, bad cop type of vibes, and it works as it provides more entertainment to the audience when you see them having opposing comments on their preferred dish. This is something you'd want to consider when making your own show or mini-series for YouTube. Balancing the cast so that they can bounce off of each other. And for the contestants, we know that the show opened up applications for chefs who wanted to join, but the production team also went to pitch the show to some of the others as well. Apparently, many chefs were wary about how the show will portray them, and they were very hesitant to accept the offer. Perhaps in fear that it would affect their restaurant sales, or it could be a pride thing too. This is why I appreciated that as a part of the pitch, they assured chefs that it would be a positive outcome. When pitching your ideas to other content creators for a collab or a show, make sure they're on board with what the outcomes of the show would be. But for this example, you can also interpret it as maybe the competition isn't as unbiased as it seems. Not going to downplay the efforts that each chef took to make their dishes, but I've had my own experiences in music competitions where it was obviously pandering to the daughter of a famous musician who so happened to be one of the judges there. Conflict of interest, my dudes. Moving along. Since I edit videos myself, I'm super duper interested in how editors worked on this show. Like, how many camera footage logs did they have to sift through? What kinds of effects that they used to point at the ingredients? Which angle did they try to frame the story around? What kind of cuts did they use to make the most impact for the viewers to enjoy the show? You kind of get the sense of who moves on to the next round depending on how much screen time they get, as well as how far into the individual story they have shown already. But this doesn't change how impactful the stories that they told were. Definitely got teary-eyed when French Papa explained his family's situation, and it does make me cheer them on in their culinary journeys even after the show. The episodes also employed the most cliche editing trick, building up to the climax of a particular round, only to give you the "stay tuned until next time" and cut to the ending credits before they announce the winners. I just ended up pausing the episode right before the last battle of the round and waited until the next episode got released, or saved it for my next meal because that's when I usually watch the show. One more thing that I learned from watching the show, and I guess following how content managers do their thing, is that I started to notice a lot of collabs between the individual chefs in their own YouTube channels during and after the show aired. For the ones airing during the show, it would either be right after a chef got eliminated and you would get to see a glimpse of what happens afterwards, or straight up a chef that's still in the game but you see more of them outside of the context of the show. This might be considered marketing 101, but it's still clever. People who just finished watching the episode will likely search up the contestants. The downside of this is that if you are watching it as the episode airs, you have to avoid sites like YouTube, news, or even social media if you don't want to be spoiled before finishing the episode. You can use this technique for your own content too. A recent example I noticed in the VTuber sphere was nanaasteria's VCraft Unwrapped podcast, which invites participants of the VCraft Minecraft SMP after the server ended. People usually hype up events by building up to it prior to the date, but what you do after the event is, and I would say, even more important. No matter how big or small your event is, don't forget the aftercare. If you liked watching this video, check out this one about making content as a VTuber, or this one that's recommended for you. I stream games and handcam activities like model kit building, TCG pack openings, and unboxings on Twitch. And if you want to support the channel, consider joining the membership, check out my wishlist on Throne to support upcoming content ideas or other ways listed in the description box below. Bye for now!